G'day all, Warwick Baines, the subject convener for ACC331 here. Hope you're enjoying the session with us so far. I thought given we're just about at the halfway mark for the session and just over a month away from the assignment, the major assignment being due, thought it'd be prudent to just go over a few things very briefly, things to think about as you turn your mind to doing that assignment. Also, no matter what cohort you're in, by the end of this week, week 6, you should have covered all of the topics that are relevant for the major assignment. On my screen here above me, hopefully my little talking head's not too distracting, you can see the what we call the marking criteria for the major assignment. Now, hopefully you've seen this before in heaps of other subjects. It should be in every subject that you study with us here at CSU. And this one table covers the criteria for all 4 of the questions that you're expected to do for the major assignment. And importantly, when you get your assignment back, this will be either at the front or the back of your assignment completed. Okay, so this is what we're marking to assign the marks for each of the 4 questions. You'll note in the question, in the assignment, each of the questions are worth 15 marks each, and that adds obviously to 60, and then we'll convert that to a mark out of 30. So this assignment is worth 30%, so obviously worth doing this assessment task really well. You'll notice if you look at the performance standards, we start at high distinction, we start positive and move down the scale down to pass. And just because there isn't a fail column doesn't mean that you can't fail this assignment. Absolutely you can. Essentially what we're saying here is if you haven't met any of this criteria for any of those assignment questions, you've failed the assignment. So when you get it back, you'll have aspects of it shaded. It may well be that for the one question, you've done some aspects at a high distinction level and other aspects at a credit level, for example. So bear that in mind. I'll just very briefly go through each of the questions in turn. I won't read through all of the performance standards. I'll just generally focus on the high distinction standard, what you need to get at that sort of level of mark for each of the questions. And what I've tried to do is have a criteria that's reasonably comprehensive for each of the questions, but I didn't want to have, a table for every question because that gets quite unwieldy. So question 1 is probably, compared to the subject offering in previous years, probably the most unique one. What we're seeking to do, it's essentially from that topic 1 where we talk about other assurance services that auditors now undertake, is to get you to focus on that one issue, if you like, or that one assurance service of assuring greenhouse gas statements. And this is the one that you're probably going to have to do your most research on. Probably the other questions you can do largely from material in the textbook. And so I just want to stress that. You need to select your own company, so that's up to you. And you can see in the criteria there, to get a high distinction, you've got to, you've identified them. You've got to identify those voluntary and regulatory components of the greenhouse gas statements for your selected Australian company have to be identified and really well summarised. You'll note for all of the questions you've got reasonably tight word limit, and so that's the key. One of the key skills we're after is getting you to focus your mind, getting you to say things succinctly and clearly. So that's a key expectation for question 1. You've got to focus on the 2 key assertions. So assertions is a concept that we introduced you to sort of in about topic 3. And so you need to apply your understanding of the key assertions to this particular area of assurance work as well. So you need to make sure that they're the ones that are most relevant. Of course, there's a whole range of assertions that could be relevant, but you've got to come up with the 2 that are most relevant, and you've got to justify them. That's absolutely key as well. You can't just list them. You've got to justify them. And as always with auditing, as we've tried to say over the last couple of weeks, once you've established what the assertions are, you've got objectives, and then you've got audit procedures that seek to meet those objectives of covering off those assertions. So you've got to select the audit procedures that really demonstrate to us as the markers you've understood the relationship between the assertions, the key assertions that you've identified, and the key procedures. So that's question 1. On to question 2. Now this is a legal liability scenario question from topic 2. And really what you need to be doing here is bring in the key aspects of the law and auditing standards if they're relevant. I'm not going to throw too many hints that way, but if they are relevant, and I think they may be, there's a hint. Having just said I might not give a hint. There's a couple of audit standards as well as common law that are going to be relevant. But again, really focus your mind on which ones are most integral to deciding effectively whether Jackie's Joints is guilty of contributory negligence, and also whether you, as the external auditor, have failed to exercise due care. So that's key. That's key to doing an effective question 2. So you've got to essentially decide 2 things. One is effectively your negligence as the auditor, and then Jackie Joint's level of negligence or her level of contributory negligence. So bear that in mind as well. You've got to tie those things to the relevant aspects of the common law. So work through that clearly, but make sure you do it in a succinct way. Question 3 is largely, essentially question 3 covers topics 3 and 4 in a sense. So you've got to be using your skills here, maybe acquired back in your first year accounting days when it comes to ratio analysis, to identify where you should focus your audit work. Okay, so here for the HD distinction, you're going to have to explain to us clearly why you've chosen the 3 ratios that you have that are most helpful to assessing the client's business risk environment. Okay, and then you've got to relate that to the key account balances at risk and explain why, and then justify them. So again, there's that skill there of identifying where the key risk is in terms of assertions, and then coming up with the reasons why. You don't have to go to the point of coming up with procedures just yet. And you'll see in this one, we've got a suggested table format. Please make use of that table format. It really helps clarify your thinking, I think, when it comes to applying questions in auditing. So please use that table format suggested at the bottom of question 3. And then finally, internal controls. That is essentially from this week's topic, or the topic we're covering in the distance cohort anyway, topic 5, and quite a comprehensive question. So make sure you read all of the details in the question quite closely. But what you've got to do here is explain why you've chosen the 7 internal control weaknesses that you have. Okay, and again, there's a suggested table format that you could use for at least part A of that question, and then you need to move on to identifying and justifying tests that you'd undertake, including computer-assisted audit techniques to support that process. And that's essentially what that high distinction standard is expecting. So it's not enough just to list the weaknesses, not enough just to talk about some of the tests that you would use. You do need to throw in some reasonably well justified CATs to support that audit process as well. So that's kind of the key pieces of information. You may notice that there's a sort of a 5th criteria below. I'll just highlight that here. The professional communication in accordance with APA style. Now, in a sense, we haven't allocated any marks in a positive sense to ensuring that that's done well. But if it's not done to a high standard, there's a strong chance you're going to lose marks. So please take the time to read that standard as well as the ones related specifically to the questions. You need to make sure that, particularly in relation to question 1, you've got evidence of research, and across the board that you've got it well formatted and it's well expressed. If you've got any further questions, please feel free to talk to your subject coordinator in your cohort, and if they've got questions they can't answer, they'll throw them to me. Thanks very much, and all the best.